What hurts more, the hit that breaks your bones, or the words that break your heart? I didn't know the answer until the night I woke up in a cold hospital room, my whole body shaking like a weak leaf. I couldn't breathe right. My ribs felt like shattered glass inside me, and every breath came out as a painful ah, uh, ah sigh. The lights were dim, machines were blinking, and for a moment I genuinely wondered, am I alive? Or stuck somewhere between? And then I remembered the title of my story. And the thumbnail text too, her exact words haunting me. Mom's plane crashed. Finally, we can sell everything. If someone told me a stranger said that about me, maybe I could laugh it off with a sad little, ha ha ha, life is strange. But when those words came from my own daughter, even breathing hurt more. I remember blinking slowly, trying not to move because every movement felt like fire under my skin. The nurse had stepped out for a minute, and her phone was lying on the counter, screen glowing. I didn't think anything of it until I heard a voice, a cheerful voice. Familiar, sharp, my daughter. And before my brain could even celebrate the thought of hearing her, I heard her say it, on speaker, loud enough that it sliced through the room like a knife. Mom's plane crashed, she said, almost excited, almost relieved. And then she laughed, ha ha ha, a bright, happy laugh, the kind she used to have when she was a little girl and I surprised her with her favorite pancakes. But now it was different, bitter, cold. My lips trembled, and I whispered, no, no, aw, sweetheart, how can you say that? A painful breath escaped me, almost like a soft weeping sound I couldn't control. The machines beside me beeped faster, like they were panicking with me. I closed my eyes, and suddenly I wasn't in that hospital room anymore. I was in all the years before. I saw myself packing her lunches, staying awake when she had fevers, singing to her on nights she was scared of the dark. I saw myself clapping for her at school plays, crying when she graduated, holding her hand through heartbreaks, always giving, always loving. And yet here she was, laughing because she thought I died. A nurse walked in right then, humming to herself like nothing happened. She didn't know I was awake. She didn't know I just had my heart torn apart inside my fragile chest. I wanted to speak, to call her, to ask. Please, can you check if my daughter made a mistake? Maybe she's in shock. Maybe she didn't mean it. But I couldn't get a full sentence out. My mouth felt heavy, my breath too thin. And slowly, painfully, I realized the truth. No one even knew I was alive. They brought me in as a Jane Doe because my bag was stolen during the chaos of the evacuation. My ID was gone. The manifest listed me as missing. The crash site flames confused everything. And I had no name here. No family waiting. No daughter calling hospitals. The nurse even said softly earlier, poor woman, no one has checked in for her. Sigh, imagine hearing that about yourself. But hearing my daughter laugh, that was worse than any broken bone in my body. The words echoed inside me. Finally, we can sell everything. Everything? My home? My memories? The things I kept safe for decades? The little box where I stored her drawings? The old wooden bed where I slept next to her when she had nightmares? Everything? Ah, that broke me. Truly. I remember staring at the ceiling, tears slipping down my temples. I didn't even sob loudly, just quiet, shaking, like my soul was trying to hold itself together with thin fingers. When did my life become something she wanted to liquidate? Maybe it happened slowly, when she stopped calling me Mommy, then Mom, then nothing at all unless she needed money. Maybe I knew something was wrong years ago. But nothing prepares you for the moment your child celebrates your death. I just lay there breathing softly, painfully, letting the truth settle into my bones. And another heavy sigh escaped me when I realized something else. Even if I wanted to tell them who I was, I couldn't speak long enough without coughing blood. And even if I did, what then? Would she come? Would she cry? Would she say, Mom, I thought I lost you? Or would she stare and think, Oh no, now I can't sell anything. That thought hurt more than the crash. So I made a decision right there, not out of revenge, not out of anger, but out of pure heartbreak. I wasn't going to reveal myself yet. Not until I understood why she sounded happy, not until I saw what she was doing, not until I figured out how deep this betrayal went. My breaths were small, shaky. My fingers trembled as I whispered, "Sigh, what happened to you, my child?" The nurse returned, checking the machines, unaware I'd heard something that changed everything. Outside my room, life moved on. People laughed, walked, talked, ate, while I lay in a bed, alive but erased. And the saddest part? My daughter didn't even know she erased me. Happily. But something inside me shifted that day. A small spark. Weak, but alive. If she thought she buried me, she would soon learn I wasn't done living. I wasn't done being a mother. I wasn't done being me. And if she celebrated my death, then what else had she done behind my back? And I knew I needed to find out. If my own daughter cheered for my death, what else would I discover when I watched her life from the shadows? Have you ever been alive, but treated like a ghost? Ha! It sounds funny when I say it like that, but it hurts in a place deeper than bone. When I opened my eyes the next morning, the room felt colder, like the walls themselves knew something inside me had broken. I had survived a plane crash, but I wasn't sure if I survived the truth I heard last night. I breathed slowly, my chest rising with a soft, ugh, ah, every time the pain shot through me. It was strange. The physical pain felt far away compared to the words that stuck in my ears. Finally, we can sell everything. My daughter said it so easily. Sigh. How does a mother heal from that? A doctor came in, smiling too brightly for a place filled with suffering. "Good morning," he said, checking the machines beside me. "You're healing slowly. A miracle, honestly." I nodded weakly, but my mind wasn't on my body. My mind was whispering again, "No one knows who I am." And yes, that part was true. I was a Jane Doe, a nobody, a woman lost in a crash with her ID stolen and her name mixed up with the flames. I wasn't dead, but the world had put me in a box and closed the lid. If only they knew how alive my pain was. Later, when the nurse left me alone again, I turned my head slowly toward the window. I whispered to myself, "My daughter didn't call the hospitals. She didn't even try." That realization hit me harder than when my body hit the ground in that forest. At least the crash wasn't intentional. This was a choice, my daughter's choice. My throat burned, my eyes filled, and I let a tiny weeping slip out before covering my mouth so no one would hear. As the days passed, I learned things in bits and pieces. Apparently, the airline had listed me among the missing. My purse was gone. Someone had stolen it during the chaotic evacuation. My dental records were outdated. The accident site was a mess. And with no one stepping forward to claim me, they just assumed I was one of the victims who died. The nurse even said to another patient, "Her family must be so devastated. Maybe they couldn't bear to come." A soft, sad escaped me. You know those ugly laughs that come out when you're not really laughing? Yeah, that kind. Because I knew the truth. My daughter wasn't devastated. She was busy rearranging her life like she'd been waiting for this moment. One afternoon, when the light from the window made the room feel almost warm, an airline representative showed up. A man in a stiff gray suit with fake kindness written all over his face. He didn't know I heard my daughter's voice. He didn't know my name. He just walked in with a folder. "Ma'am," he said, "we're here to help survivors with arrangements." He said, "Arrangements," the way people say problems. He explained quietly that they were offering settlements to survivors, private ones, confidential. No media, no interviews, no lawsuits. "We want to close everything peacefully," he said. He said it so calmly, like closing a death was like closing a door. He assumed I had no family. He assumed I had no one to ask for. And I just listened, with a tiny nod, pretending I was still too weak to talk. But inside me, something was shifting. If he didn't know who I was, then my daughter definitely didn't know I was alive. She didn't even ask. She didn't check. She didn't wait. She just accepted the death paper the world handed her and sighed. I kept wondering, why? Why was my death easier for her than my life? That night, when everyone left, I asked the nurse quietly, "Have there been any calls? Anyone asking about me?" She checked the log and smiled politely. "No, dear, not yet. But sometimes family needs time to process." Ah, that sentence hurt so deeply that I turned my face toward the wall so she wouldn't see the tears rolling down my cheeks. Family needs time? Huh, my daughter didn't need time. She needed space. The space my death gave her. A couple days later, the nurse's assistant accidentally mentioned something while wiping the table beside me. She said, "You know the woman they declared deceased? Her daughter already listed the house online. It's a beautiful place. Shame." My heart dropped to the floor. My house, my home, the place I built brick by brick with memories, laughter, tears, stories. I whispered, "Listed?" And the assistant nodded casually. "Yes, apparently she wants to move on fast. People handle grief differently." Oh wow, I actually laughed softly at that, the kind of laugh that sounds like a broken whisper. My daughter wasn't grieving, she was cleaning, removing me, selling me. I imagined her walking through the rooms, deciding what to throw away, what to donate, what to sell. And a soft "ah" left my mouth, because I knew she never cared about the sentimental things. The little crafts she made as a child, the old cushions she said were ugly, the quilt my mother gave me. I looked at the ceiling as if it could give me answers. Did I raise someone who only saw me as a purse, a tool? The question burned my chest. I remembered the night she called me cheap because I packed her lunch instead of giving her money. I remembered her saying I had a scarcity mindset because I saved more than I spent. I remembered her rolling her eyes at my old furniture, calling them aesthetic nightmares. And now she finally had what she wanted: the house, the things, the freedom. The next morning, I woke up with a strange mix of pain and clarity. My breathing was still slow, my body still weak. If she could erase me in one day, what else had she erased over the years? Who else had she pushed away? What lies had she told herself about me? Those questions were scary, but I needed answers. And so, while lying in that cold hospital bed, I made a quiet promise. I whispered it softly. "Sigh, I'll heal, and then I'll find out the truth. If she sold my home so easily, what would I discover when I saw it with my own eyes?" Have you ever watched your own life being sold piece by piece while you were still breathing? Ha! It sounds unreal when I say it, but it happened to me. When I was finally strong enough to sit up without gasping for air, I told the nurses I wanted some fresh air. In truth, I wanted answers. My body still hurt. I needed to see what my daughter was doing, so a social worker arranged a slow transport and a driver helped me to the car. I didn't say a word the whole ride. My fingers kept shaking, my breath stayed thin, and my mind whispered, "Please, please let it not be true." But when we turned onto my old street, sigh, reality hit harder than the crash. My house. The one I painted myself, the one where I rocked my baby girl to sleep, the one where her tiny hand once held mine, was sitting there with a bright sign in the yard: "Under contract, under contract, under contract, under contract." Just 2 words, but they punched me in the chest. I let out a tiny, shaky "aw" and covered my mouth. The house looked different. The flowers I planted were gone. My old porch mat was gone. Even the wind chime my granddaughter made, gone. It felt like my memories had been swept away with a broom. And then I saw her, my daughter, standing right at the front door with a wide smile, wearing a white blazer, pointing things out to a young couple. She looked like a polished real estate agent, confident, glowing, laughing. The laugh felt like a knife this time because she didn't look like someone who just lost a mother. She looked like someone who just closed a deal. I stayed in the car, hidden behind the tinted window. The young couple was excited, touching the walls, looking around like they were already imagining their furniture inside. The girl giggled and said, "It has such cute vintage vibes." And my daughter nodded proudly, as if she had ever appreciated anything vintage. A dull escaped me as I watched her claim my hard work as her taste. But then something else caught my eye. My granddaughter. Sweet little Bry, she stood behind her mother, arms folded, looking down, kicking the ground slowly. Her face wasn't happy, her shoulders were tense. She didn't smile, she didn't join the conversation, she just looked sad. That alone made my eyes sting. She always had a soft heart. She always cared. When the buyers went inside, I whispered, "Sigh, let me see more," and asked the driver to take me around back. He parked near the alley, and I slowly stepped out, holding onto the door for balance. And then I saw it. A huge dumpster, filled, completely filled. And not with trash, with my life. My dining chairs, the ones my husband built with his own hands, thrown like junk. My old sofa pillows, the ones my granddaughter used to sleep on, stuffed under broken wood pieces. My sewing basket, my kitchen stuff, my books, everything mixed like garbage. I felt something crack inside me. A quiet weeping slipped out. Not loud, just enough to feel my heart fold in on itself. And then I saw something sticking out under some cardboard. I moved closer, leaning on the dumpster, and picked it up with trembling hands. The glass was cracked right through my husband's face. My breath hitched. "Oh, Walter," I whispered, touching the broken corner. "This was the photo I kept beside my bed for decades." She threw it away like it meant nothing. Ha ha ha. It's strange how life works. A single broken frame can break a whole person. Just then, my hand shook so much I almost dropped it. I held the frame to my chest and whispered, "Did I really raise someone who could throw away her own parents' memories?" My heart whispered back, "You raised someone, but you can't control who they choose to become." Deeply, I went back into the car slowly, each breath heavy and full of disbelief. I asked the driver to park a little further down, and we watched quietly as my daughter walked out again with the couple. She pointed at the dining room, "My dining room!" and smiled big, saying something that made them laugh. My body tensed. She was performing, not grieving. And then I saw her gesture at the backyard, waving her hand like everything she was showing them was hers by right. Sigh. I couldn't even be angry. I was disappointed in a way that numbed me. As they walked out to the driveway, I noticed something else. Boxes in her trunk. My boxes. On the top of one, I saw a small ceramic horse, a tiny figurine my late husband gifted me on our anniversary. My daughter grabbed the box without looking inside. She tilted it, and the figurine rolled to the edge and disappeared behind other boxes. She didn't even blink. Ah, that tiny moment cut deeper than anything. It was like watching her toss away my love story. When they left, I whispered, "Follow her." The driver hesitated but nodded. She drove to a storage facility, got out, and Bree followed her slowly. They unloaded the boxes. My daughter took notes on a clipboard, talking fast, annoyed at something. Bree looked tired, sad, uncomfortable. When she lifted one box, she paused, touching something inside gently. I couldn't see what, but the softness in her touch made my chest ache. At least someone still felt something. After they left, I got out of the car again. My knees shook, but I walked to the dumpster behind the storage building. That's when I saw it. A broken frame lying on the top. My wedding photo again. This time cracked worse. I picked it up and held it close. The world felt quiet and loud at the same time. My heart whispered, "She's not just selling things, she's erasing you." And that's the moment I decided something inside me. A quiet, steady decision. I wasn't going to disappear. Not yet. Not like this. If she thought she buried me under paperwork and trash bins, she had no idea who I had become after surviving a crash. I was stronger now. Softer too, but stronger in the ways that mattered. If she erased my house like that, what would she do when she realized I wasn't gone at all? What happens when a woman they thought was dead stands back up? That question kept circling in my mind like a slow echo as I lay in my small rehab bed, healing just enough to finally use my hands again. My body was getting stronger, tiny, painful steps at a time. I kept replaying everything I saw. My daughter smiling while selling my home, my memories stuffed in dumpsters, my wedding photo cracked like it meant nothing. Sigh. Every time I remembered, a little pinch hit my chest. Not anger, something colder, disappointment so deep it felt like a bruise on my heart, but also a quiet fire building inside me. A fire that whispered, "You're not done yet." So one morning, when the sun fell softly through the blinds, I called the one person who had always treated me like a human being, my lawyer, Marvin. When he picked up the phone and heard my voice, he gasped so loudly I actually smiled for the first time in months. "June?" he said, like he'd seen a ghost. "Alive!" And he let out a shaky sigh of shock. Within hours he came to meet me, not in public, not where anyone could see, but in a small borrowed office with peeling paint and old dusty chairs. When he walked in and saw me, his eyes softened with the kind of relief people show when they finally find something they thought they'd lost forever. I whispered, "Oh, don't look at me like that." And he said, "You scared me half to death." We sat down and I told him everything, my recovery, my daughter's reaction, the house sale, the dumpster, the broken memories. His jaw clenched tighter with each word. He kept saying, "Unbelievable, unbelievable," under his breath. When I finished, he leaned back with a long sigh and asked, "What do you want to do?" I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling that small fire inside me glow brighter. "Not revenge," I whispered, "just truth." And he nodded slowly, understanding without me needing to explain more. We made a plan, a quiet one, like a slow breath. Time to understand exactly who my daughter had become. And Marvin agreed to stall the probate, stall the documents, stall everything. Little delays, little missing papers, little emails misplaced by accident. Nothing illegal, nothing dramatic, just slow, silent steps to keep my daughter from cashing out my life. And while Marvin handled the legal side, I made a decision too. I would disappear, but not the way she wanted me to. I would become someone new, someone she couldn't touch. After leaving rehab, I moved to a tiny town 3 hours away, a place where the air smelled like old rain and the streets were quiet at night. I rented a small 2-room apartment above a bakery. The smell of bread early in the morning actually made my heart feel warm for the first time in forever. I chose a new name, June Emerson. Emerson was my grandmother's maiden name. I whispered it softly. June Emerson. Maybe I can be her for a while. Everything felt strange, like I was in someone else's life, but also free. But just because I hid didn't mean I stopped watching. Oh no, if anything, I watched more closely than I ever did when I was alive in her world. I used an anonymous browser, a private network Marvin set up, and one by one I read everything. Screenshots of her bragging online about being self-made. Ha ha ha! Imagine my face when I read that. She even wrote a long caption about overcoming grief and starting fresh. I had to hold my chest because it hurt to laugh and hurt to cry at the same time. But the person who caught my heart the most was Bree, my granddaughter. Sweet, soft, gentle Bree. She wasn't pretending to be strong. Her photos looked tired, her smiles were small, her eyes looked older. In one picture, she wore the little silver locket I gave her, the one with my photo inside. When I saw that, my eyes filled instantly. A quiet "ah" escaped me as I touched the screen like she could feel it. At least someone still held my memory close. Weeks passed, and every few days I went back to the city quietly, sitting in cafes where no one noticed me, watching my daughter's new life. She moved into a modern office, glass walls, gold accents, expensive furniture. She called herself a lifestyle curator now. New title, new clothes, new story. But underneath that perfect hair and perfect lipstick, I saw something else. Fear. She walked fast, talked fast, controlled everything. She wasn't relaxed. She was running, not from me, but from her own guilt. One afternoon, while sitting across the street sipping tea, I saw her hug a client with a bright, "Ha ha ha!" And then, the moment the woman left, her face fell flat, cold, stressed, irritated. She rubbed her forehead like it hurt. That was the moment I realized she wasn't happy. She was just performing happiness. And performances crack eventually. But what shook me most wasn't her. It was Bry. She visited the office sometimes, helping arrange things. She looked uncomfortable, staying in corners, avoiding eye contact with her mother. She kept pulling at her sleeves, looking at the floor, biting her lip. My heart whispered, "She's not okay." And a long sigh slipped from my chest. I wanted to hug her, to hold her, to say, "Ah, baby, I'm right here." But I couldn't. Not yet. Then one day, while I watched from across the street, Bree walked out of the office alone. She stood on the sidewalk staring at the sky, her locket in her hand. And suddenly I felt something inside me rise. A feeling that said, it's time, not to reveal myself fully, but to take the first step back into their world. Not to punish, not to fight, just to be seen again. Because if my daughter wanted to erase me, she was about to learn I wasn't ink. I wasn't fragile. I had survived a crash that killed 87 people. She couldn't break me with her choices. She thought I was gone, but soon she would see me with her own eyes. There's a strange silence that happens right before you walk into someone's life again, especially a life where they already buried you. My hands were cold that morning, colder than usual, and I kept rubbing my fingers together to steady them. I wasn't afraid of my daughter. No. I was afraid of the moment her eyes would look into mine. Alive. I wondered what she would feel. Shock? Fear? Something in my chest whispered. Awe? Maybe a tiny bit of love? But I didn't let myself hope too much. I had already seen enough to know she moved on without looking back. Still, something inside me needed this moment, needed her to see the person she thought she erased. I walked into her office building slowly, breathing carefully so my ribs wouldn't scream. The lobby was shiny, loud with heels clicking, people talking, phones ringing. It didn't feel like my world anymore. It was hers, cold, fast, polished. The receptionist looked up with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Good morning, ma'am. Do you have an appointment?" I took a slow breath and whispered, "Tell her, her 10 o'clock is here." She looked confused, maybe a little annoyed, but she made the call anyway. And I heard it. My daughter's voice through the tiny speaker, sharp, irritated. "What do you mean she's already here? Who?" The receptionist started explaining, but before she finished, my daughter snapped, my daughter snapped, my daughter snapped, my daughter snapped. Send her in. I walked down the hallway, each step echoing like a drum in my chest. Sigh. My heart was doing its own thing, beating stubbornly, whispering, "Brace yourself." Her office door was half open, and I pushed it slowly. When she saw me, oh God, the air changed. Her body froze, her eyes went wide, her lips parted, but no sound came out. For a moment she didn't look like a grown woman. She looked like a terrified child who just saw a ghost. And in a soft, trembling voice I said, "Hello, Candace." She blinked once, twice, took a step back. Her hand landed on the edge of her desk like she needed something to hold her upright. "Mom," she whispered, barely breathing. "You're... you... I... I..." Her shoulders flinched at that small sound. "You look well," I said softly, even though my voice had a tiny break in it. She shook her head quickly, almost panicked. "How? When? Why didn't?" Her words twisted together like she couldn't decide which lie to use first. I stared at her calmly, letting the silence do the talking. That's when she straightened her back a little, trying to gain control. "You can't just come here," she said, voice tight. "You should have called. You can't appear like this. I thought you were dead." A tiny ha 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 escaped me, the sad, broken kind that hurts more than it sounds funny. "Yes," I said, "you did think that, and you didn't check." Her mouth opened, but no words came. She looked away, jaw tightening. It was such an empty sentence that I actually sighed. You listed my house 2 days after the crash, I replied quietly. You called my things outdated. You donated what you didn't want. You threw my memories into dumpsters. Her shoulders stiffened. She inhaled sharply. I didn't know what to do, she said quickly, defensively. Everything was chaos. I was overwhelmed. I had to make decisions. I stepped closer, not to threaten, just to look at her more clearly. You celebrated, I said softly. I heard it. I was lying in a hospital bed, broken, half conscious, and you laughed. Finally, you said. Finally, we can sell everything. Her face drained of color. She looked at me like she was drowning. That's not, she began, but I raised my hand slightly. Don't lie. Not now, not to me. She swallowed hard, her throat moving like she was trying to push down the truth. Her voice cracked. I thought you were gone, she whispered, eyes filling but not spilling over, and I didn't know how to handle anything. I panicked. But I didn't say that. I just watched her. My silence made her crumble more. She ran her fingers through her hair, trembling slightly. Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me you survived? She demanded suddenly, trying to flip the blame. I let out a slow sigh. Because I needed to see who you were when I wasn't there, I said. What are you here for? Money? Revenge? What do you want from me? I reached into my coat slowly, pulling out a sealed envelope. She stared at it like it was a ticking bomb. What is this? She whispered. The truth, I said. The legal truth. Everything you assumed was yours isn't. She took it with shaking fingers. What does this mean? She asked. I looked at her steadily. It means I'm in control, and it means you don't inherit anything. Her eyes shot up, wide and shining with shock. Nothing? She whispered. You're cutting me out? I shook my head gently. No, you cut yourself out. For a moment, neither of us breathed. The room felt tight, heavy, full of all the years we never talked about. She sank into her chair slowly, staring at the envelope like it was going to bite her. I turned and walked toward the door. My hand rested on the knob when she said in a small, cracking voice, Mom, do you hate me? I closed my eyes for a second. My heart softened for a tiny moment. I turned back slightly, just enough to meet her eyes. No, I whispered. Hate means I still expect something from you. She blinked, and for the first time, I saw fear, real fear in her face. Not fear of me, fear of herself. I stepped out quietly, leaving her sitting in a beautiful office filled with everything she thought she won, and suddenly realizing she had already lost the only thing that mattered. My daughter was about to plan something even darker, and she didn't know I was watching. There are some people who, even when the world says you're gone, still remember the small things about you. And that tiny, soft truth saved me. It was Bree, my granddaughter, who reached out first, a short email that read like a hand squeezing mine across a distance. Is it really you? And my heart leapt and cracked all at once because, sigh, no one else had asked, no one else had worried, but she had noticed something missing. We met at a little cafe with lemon tarts and chipped cups, the kind of place that smells like sugar and safe things. And when I stepped in and saw her there, hair in a messy bun, the little silver locket I'd given her glinting at her throat, I felt a warmth I thought I'd lost. She stood up like she had done 1,000 times before and hugged me like she was holding on for both of us. And for a second, all the pain and plans and broken bones melted into the soft press of her arms. Hi, she said, simple as a bell, and I answered, hi. And we both laughed. A tiny, shaky laugh. Haha, because it felt like two people who had been practicing silence were finally learning a new language. We sat close, the light through the window painting her face with honesty, and she told me small things first. That she'd seen me sometimes on the street, that she'd thought I was a ghost at first, that her mom told her a lot of things she didn't quite understand. She said, Mom says you were unstable, like someone repeating a phrase she wasn't sure about, and the way she said it made me want to reach across and smooth the worry from her forehead, because it was clear she was juggling loyalty and truth and didn't know which one to juggling loyalty and truth and didn't know which one to drop. She told me about the office, about the new life that smelled expensive and hollow, about how she helped sometimes and felt uncomfortable, and every time she paused I could see a tiny storm move behind her eyes. A sigh, a little ah, a mouth that wanted to cry but instead pulled itself tight. I asked her slowly about the locket, and she touched it like it was warm, and said she kept it because it made her feel steady during exams, during cold nights, when decisions felt too big. That small confession landed in me softer than anything else. She still cared, she still remembered, and that mattered more than every lawyer and every paper in the world. When she admitted she'd missed me, she didn't say it like a speech. She said it like dropping a pebble into a quiet pond, and the ripples reached me. I missed you, she said, eyes shiny but brave, and I wanted to tell her everything. That I heard her mother laugh when she thought I was dead, that I watched my house be sold like a set, that I watched my house be sold like a set, that my wedding. Instead, I told her gently about the trust I'd set up, the one that would give her a safe future, but only when she was truly free of control, that she'd get it at 25, unless her mother tried to be her guardian or control her money, and I watched her face change like sunrise, relief softening the tight lines around her mouth. She didn't flinch at the conditions. In fact, she nodded slowly, like someone who'd been waiting for permission to breathe. I explained, in easy words, that I'd made a foundation from the rest of the estate to help women who'd been erased or pushed aside, and she reached across the table and squeezed my hand like she understood that this was not punishment but protection, a way to turn what they tried to take into something that would keep others safe. There were tears, quiet ones, not loud sobs, but enough that her voice trembled when she laughed at something small, and I said, "Ha ha ha, you still love lemon tarts," and she smiled, and the world felt gentler for a moment. We talked for a long time, mostly about small, human things, the art class she wanted to try, the internship she was saving up for, the way she liked the rhythm of late-night cafes. She told me she was thinking of moving out, of getting her own room in the city, and I felt something inside me unclench because independence is the bravest step, and she deserved it like sun after rain. She asked quietly, "Is she going to come after you?" And I nodded, "Maybe," and then told her the truth plainly. Her mother had already tried to move fast, to rewrite the story, to make grief into a business plan, and she might try legal tricks, claims about sanity, loud headlines, all the things people use when they think money can buy a new history. Bree put her hand on mine and said, "I'll help," and I felt a small, fierce joy that steadied me more than any lawyer's papers could. I told her, "Stay out of public fights. Stay clean. Don't let them drag you into storms," because I wanted her life to be her own, not a battleground where other people threw their guilt and rage. Before she left, she tucked a small napkin into my palm with a doodle of a house with a heart inside. "For you," she said, blushing, and I kept it like a tiny relic, a proof that someone still thought of home the same way I did. She hugged me again, longer this time, and when she stepped out into the light, I watched her go, feeling the house inside me shift, a little less empty, a little more whole. That night, in my small room above the bakery, I read emails Marvin had sent, the legal steps we quietly put in motion, and I felt a calmness wash over me. Not because the fight would be easy, but because I had a reason beyond myself now, a living, breathing person who believed me and who would one day have a life no one could buy or sell for her. I whispered into the quiet, "Sigh, thank you, Bree." And even though the road ahead looked long and maybe cruel, I knew I wouldn't walk it alone. The decision to protect her, to make sure she kept choice and not control, felt like fixing a window in a storm. It won't stop the rain, but it keeps home warm. We planned small things, how she could save, where she might go for internships, who to call if her mother got loud, and what to do if lawyers came knocking. She laughed a little at the idea of hiding in plain sight. Ha ha ha! And we both joked about the absurdity of life, how dramatic it felt to plan a normal future like we were plotting an escape in a bad movie, but under the jokes was something steady. Trust. I told her, softly, "You get to choose." She looked at me with eyes full of questions, and I said, "And if you ever doubt, call me. Not Marvin, me." She squeezed my hand hard, then let go, nodded, and left with a small, brave step toward a life she'd own. As the door closed behind her, I sat back and let the quiet settle, and for the first time in months, I slept without waking to a nightmare, a tired, blessed sleep with a smile that hurt because it was small and true. There is a quiet moment in life where everything you feared becomes something you simply understand, where the pain stops screaming and just becomes a soft sigh. And I reached that moment the day I saw my daughter sitting under a warm patio lamp with her lawyer friend, talking about me like I was a problem she needed to solve, not a mother who survived the deadliest night of her life. I was sitting at the far edge of the patio, half hidden behind a big plant, heart beating slow and steady, watching her sip wine with trembling fingers while pretending she was still in control. It was strange. There was no anger left in me, just knowing. My daughter leaned forward and whispered, "She's alive, but she's not the same. I have to protect myself." And her friend Deborah looked worried and said, "But she's your mother, Candace." My daughter laughed. A short, sharp ha-ha that didn't match her eyes. "Not anymore. She disappeared for a year. She abandoned her responsibilities." I stepped in. "I built everything. She doesn't get to come back and break it." I watched her wipe the sweat from her nose with her thumb, a nervous habit she had since childhood, and something inside me softened in a way I didn't expect. Oh, she wasn't the villain I imagined. She was a frightened woman trapped in the story she wrote for herself. She needed me gone to feel strong, but strength built on lies is a sand castle. One small wave, and it melts, and that wave came sooner than she thought. Because while she was plotting, whispering, planning how to paint me unstable, confused, or mentally unfit, I had already finished everything she was afraid of. I had signed every paper, set up every trust, sealed every decision. My life was no longer something she could rearrange like furniture. She didn't know she was already fighting a battle she'd lost months ago. So I stood up slowly, walked away from the restaurant without making a sound, and let her conversation drift behind me like dust. I didn't need to confront her again. She was already confronting the pieces she broke. The next morning I went to Marvin's small office, the one above the bakery where the air smelled sweet and warm, and he had everything ready. My hands trembled a little as I signed the last paper for the foundation, a place that would help older women who, like me, were pushed aside, forgotten, silenced, or treated like burdens. And every time my pen touched the page, I felt a tiny of relief leave my chest. Marvin watched me closely. "Are you sure about all of this?" he asked gently. I nodded. Then he placed the final envelope on the desk, the one meant for Candace, and said, "This ends it." When the courier delivered it to her office, she must have felt something wrong before she even opened it. I wasn't there, but I could imagine the way her throat tightened, the way her fingers trembled. When she read the first line, "All claims nullified." And when she read the final line, "No further correspondence required," she must have felt something crumble inside. A sigh, a small weeping, maybe, I don't know. But I do know this. The story she wrote for herself ended in her own hands, not because of me, but because of the choices she made long before I ever came back. She built a life without me, and in doing so, she made decisions that carried their own consequences. Life doesn't always punish loudly. Sometimes it just redirects. A few days later, I visited my old street one last time. The house had new curtains, new paint, a new laugh coming from inside, a little girl running around with mismatched socks, her mother chasing her while giggling, "Ha ha ha," a real laugh full of warmth. I stood across the street quietly, breathing in a memory that didn't belong to me anymore. The house didn't hurt, not now, because a home isn't four walls. And I wasn't forgotten, not by everyone. I slipped a small old photo, the one of me holding baby Candace on the porch, under the mailbox with a tiny stone on top, not for the new family, for myself. A goodbye to the version of me that lived there. Just a soft, "Ah," Later that afternoon, Bree came to see me, walking with her little messy bun bouncing behind her, smiling like she carried good news in her pockets. She brought sandwiches again. The potato ones, she said, reminded her of me, and we sat in my small, cozy apartment as sunlight dusted the room. She told me she applied for the internship. She told me she was moving out soon. She told me she felt lighter, like her life finally belonged to her, and I felt something warm bloom inside me, like a flower opening after winter. We talked about things that mattered, her future, her dreams, the art she wanted to make, the places she wanted to see, and not once did she mention her mother. Not out of avoidance, out of peace. Some storms don't need to be talked about once they pass. Before she left, she touched my cheek gently and said, "You changed everything." And I laughed softly. No, sweetheart, I just stopped disappearing. I stayed at the door a moment longer, whispering, "Sigh, thank you for finding me." That night I sat by my window, listening to the soft sounds of the bakery downstairs, watching the moon rest on the rooftops. I didn't feel like a ghost anymore. I didn't feel erased or unwanted. I felt whole. Because in the end, I didn't take revenge. I chose peace. I chose truth. And truth, when you hold it gently, doesn't burn you, it frees you. And maybe the world doesn't get to hear this kind of story often. A story where the person who survived didn't come back angry, but awake. Where the ending isn't loud, but steady. Where love didn't come from the person I expected, but from the one who still held my picture close to her heart. And that's enough. More than enough. Because in the end, I didn't win anything. I simply stopped losing myself. And that was the real miracle. If this story touched you, even a little, leave a comment, my dear. And remember, you deserve peace, love, and respect. Take care of your heart. I'll see you in the next story.